Here in Bucks County, there is plenty of land, wooded areas that have gone untouched throughout the years, as well as some areas that have been built up and nature has taken back. For the people here in the borough of Hulmeville, they have extreme concerns about this area of land right behind me, which has been deemed Hulmeville Hill. There is an effort going on with a group of people who are trying everything that they can to prevent these houses from going up. They have concerns ranging from flooding to overpopulation to overcrowding of schools, as well as agricultural and animal life. So today I got to sit down and talk to these people and get their story.
Okay, so we're Hulmeville Conservation Committee. There's probably about, I'd say, 20 of us that meet regularly. We started about a year ago, maybe?
It was right after
his
the
initial
meeting in March of last year.
So when Eugene from Superior Holdings held his first meeting in March of 2022, after that a group of us got together. So we've had a core group of people pursuing saving the hill since then. We feel like we're stronger together, so that's why we kind of banded together. And we all have the same concerns, which are flooding. And we can show you photos of all the floods that have happened in the past. They used to come very infrequently, the 100-year, the big one. When I moved in here in 1991, everybody referred to the flood of 55.
Yeah.
The flood of 55. Everybody talked about that. So that's a 40-year, history.
Wow.
And now it's once every 2-3 years that a large part of our town, the main street of our town, becomes flooded. And we can show you pictures going all the way back.
Okay.
So the flooding issues.
And the water is starting to come up more and more up here.
It's progressing.
So it's getting ready to block all the streets in Hulmeville off.
Yeah.
Every flood you get sediment. So the creek is getting shallower and shallower, so that makes the water go further out.
Right.
And the DEP and the EPA are doing a lot of work on making towns hold their sediment before it gets to the water. And we've done a lot of work as a town to do that, but it's not gonna stop. If there's development up on that hill, there's no way to stop additional flooding. And like Sandy was saying earlier, is it used to just come on the creek side. The flooding was, the major damage was the houses on the creek side. Now
Right.
It's on both sides, and it's more closer and closer to the center
Creeping
of town.
up further and further.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the town.
And there's no
Into town.
chance that anybody could do the township or something could do some dredging or something along the creek to make it deeper?
I don't know anything about dredging, and I haven't heard.
They did something like that.
I know behind my house I had one small island about 30 years ago. Now that island has trees on it that big. And now there's another little island with trees on it. The islands just keep growing from the sediment.
That's ridiculous.
His house had to be lifted after Hurricane Floyd. And now it's flooding. The
I
flood's
still get
up
flooded.
there.
It's just not
But
damaging the
it's getting
house.
deeper and deeper.
Right.
It's getting there.
I had 7 feet in my basement.
And you fear that this is definitely going to be adding to that.
Yes.
Yeah, what the developer's saying is that he's going to, he's dealing with engineers and he's going to develop retention ponds. There's also wetlands back in here. So where he wants to put these retention ponds
It's right there.
are going to bounce up against the wetlands. But the other issues that we have is, the school district. The president of the school district, whose name I can't remember, he came to the meeting in March and he said, we've just consolidated and closed schools because we had less children. Now you're going to put more kids in the system. We have nowhere for them and we're completely against this. And then the meeting we just had, the planning commission meeting in, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, last week.
There was a woman there who said that Hoover's capacity, Hoover, which is the local grade school, which is right up at the top of the hill, the capacity is 730 students, and there's 705 in there now. So where are you going to put all those students?
Right.
There's nowhere for them to go.
Well, they were talking. They did have a traffic engineer out there that Superior had hired, and they want to put like 100. I'm going to say roughly 125 homes up there. And they were just talking about, it's only going to increase. It's not going to increase the traffic. It's not going to be bad. It's only going to be like 90 cars, 80 trips in and out, or something like that a day.
That really
And
makes no sense.
that everybody has 2 to 3 cars, and if they put apartments up there, which they're planning on putting up there, there's more cars there too.
And the other thing is that there's a slip of that land that is Middletown Township. There's a sliver, a little pie cut. And on their plans, they show that they're gonna put parking lots right up to the property line. And my question is, does Middletown Township are they even aware of this? Because as far as I know, they're not.
Well, hopefully they're seeing this and they are now. If they weren't before.
Yeah.
Now we live, all right, we're back to the flood. We live down on Ford. Up above us, they had put in about 20 some years ago a development, Henry's Run. You know, and ever since then, the water just comes right down the street, fills everybody's basements pretty much, and you know it's coming across. Now I know that when hurricanes and stuff like that and the creek overflows, it's coming from Upper Bucks, you know, but all this stuff is still gonna end up in the creek.
Yeah.
And it's gonna rise more and more and more.
And also, there is Henry's Run, when it was built, you know, the people had concerns then. And they were like, what are you going to do? And they said, oh, we're going to build this retention pond. And they did build a retention pond. And the water doesn't go to the retention pond, because water will go the path of least resistance.
There's never been
and
water
straight
in that.
down that hill, straight down that
Right to
street
your house.
is where the water goes.
Right to Joe's house.
Right to
Yeah, it
Joe's.
goes, and it's not just Joe. It's like, yeah, these guys live right there, but it's all up and down.
And it's
You know,
gonna-
it's just getting worse and worse. And we were told at the meeting, they also had an engineer at the meeting, and the engineer told us that when they put the retention ponds in, that it's going to be better. That it's going to be a better situation than it is currently now. So they're trying to get us to believe that building up there and creating impervious surface and getting rid of all the green is going to be a better situation for us and for the flooding situation. So I think they're a little disingenuous with what they're trying to get us to swallow. None of us can figure out what's the gain. What do we get from this? You know, we're going to get, you know, they're going to be taxed and we're going to get tax money, but it costs $14,000 a student. So to think that we have to have services for these people. So that means right now we have 2 to 3 cops. We only really need 1. We have 2 to 3 cops on there, and now we're going to need how many officers? And then our fire station is volunteer. So now is it not going to be a volunteer fire station? Are we going to have to pay our firemen? I don't understand how that works, but it doesn't sound good.
And another thing, there's 300 houses in Hulmeville, and they want to build 120 up there, units. So it's like a quarter of the whole town.
Yeah.
So they're changing everything
Yeah,
around.
they're gonna change it all.
And how they figure there's not going to be much more traffic, it doesn't make any sense.
You
Yeah,
go
that-
out there when school's letting out.
Rush hours,
The
you can't
traffic
go
is
in.
all the way down the hill and over to the bridge.
Oh,
How
yeah.
about Bellevue? How
And
about
and up
Fox that
Bellevue.
In
backs up?
Bellevue, the same
Yeah.
thing.
And what the problem is, what happens if something happens, you have to get to the hospital or whatever. You can't get out.
Oh.
Right.
It's
what
not like
Linda
there's
was
too
saying.
many alternate routes.
And when it floods, that whole side of Hulmeville is shut down, sometimes for a couple of days. So there's only one way in and out.
Right. And then they're also talking about the development itself only has one way in and one way out. So if you live tucked in the back and there's an emergency up front and then a heart attack in the back, how are you getting, there's only one way in and one way out. We didn't speak to the history of the town, the history of the property up there. So the property was owned by William Penn, as all of Pennsylvania was, you know, deeded to him from the king. And from there was a family called the Prauls, Praul, and from there was a family called the Buntings. And then it went to the Blacks. Harriet Black was a Bunting. So you're talking about 3 families that have owned that property since the 1700s. The house that sits up there is a farmhouse from the late 1700s. It's a center hall colonial. It's exquisite. It's beautiful. And then the barn is also, it's the largest bank barn this far south in Bucks County.
And none of that is on the historical
None
registry.
of it is historically preserved. And so this new thing that he just showed us was, he's always talked about taking down the barn. And now this phase 2 that he just showed us at the planning commission shows him taking down the house and putting an additional 10 houses up there. So it just feels incredibly, it's not well thought out.
Now he keeps saying he's only gonna build on like 20 some acres and
Mhm.
keep the woods. And,
But he's
the
gonna put
it's
2
gonna-
mansions in the woods.
Right.
Yeah, they're big.
Yeah.
They're big homes he wants to put in there.
So, in the woods there's wetlands and marshes and vernal pools. And those are really like delicate ecosystems where that's where amphibians and reptiles lay their eggs, and there's no predators in those areas because they're only for a short amount of time. So it's really important to protect that, because then where are these amphibians and reptiles gonna reproduce their babies? So, and also birds, like there's a rail, we spotted a rail twice, one was dead, but we saw another one. And they nest in this area, so they're migratory birds, and they stop here and nest. So if we see a rail in this area, that means it's got babies, and they nest in marshes. So we've seen it here, so it's really likely that in those marshes right there, the rail has a home. There's also great horned owls, and under the Migratory Bird Act, which I guess they extended it to include owls because they're not migratory, but in Pennsylvania under the Migratory Bird Act, any kind of owl, it doesn't matter if they're endangered or not, like their home cannot be tampered with, and if there's proposed development, it needs to cease if they find a great horned owl home or any kind of owl. And I mean I don't know where on the property it is, but there's a great horned owl that lives on that property, so it's really important. Also, there's a brook that runs through it, and that's where the marshes are, and that's natural heritage area, which is again really delicate wildlife and shouldn't be tampered with. And there's also like a endangered species or species of concern that is in there.
And none of this has been looked into by anybody of power to do anything about it?
It seems like, I went on like a GIS map, and that's where I saw like natural heritage area, but it's not like backed by like a plaque by someone, like you're saying. And I don't know, I think Harriet Black, it seemed like she didn't want to preserve stuff because she wanted to maybe be able to be sold. So, but there's a lot of stuff there that's like definitely.
Yeah, like Shayna's gonna
important.
show you all that stuff back there.
What would it take to
No, just on here.
to get that process going? Like to have it recognized as like an area that's got endangered species or whatever, or protected?
So the property owner would have to be on board with that, I'm pretty sure. But like, I think that all of that goes hand in hand with like our group is we want him to make the smartest decision with the building, and these things are really important, and like if they're taken away from us, it could be detrimental to our town. So we want him to like work with us and to maybe, you know, be on board with that and still get his, you know,
Make it smart.
success. Yeah. But in a way where it doesn't affect us so negatively or affect the wildlife, which does affect us. So that's a big reason why we're doing what we're doing. The reason why the slopes are so steep right there, my friend's a hydrologist and he surveyed it, and him and his wife were like, oh, that's millions of years of glacial thaw creating those banks and the brook that runs down to the creek. And they're really concerned. They're like, I don't know how they can get around doing that, because if you tamper with those slopes, some of them, in some spots, they do look like they go close to almost 25% of a slope, which like we have rules in our zoning that you can't really mess with that. And there's a ditch where like it drains, and if it doesn't have any of the like absorbable ground, it'll come straight down to Borough Hall and flood there, but flood everything else too down this way. Like
Henry's Run is on 12 acres of land. They have 24 homes. We flood from there. The stormwater just comes down the road. I've had to move cars out of the street to put them in the driveway because the water is just like all the way across the street. So that's 12. So you figure double that, it would be 24. right? Double the house is 48. He wants 84 to 120. That's just, and
Yeah.
24 is enough on 12. It's too much from what we deal
They're
with.
pretty decently spaced out.
They are very,
Yeah.
yes.
And they have like not a huge backyard, but
Yeah, they're better
Yeah,
spaced than.
yeah.
But it's still a lot coming
Right.
down our
Plus
road.
all the
And
street-
that road, that water just comes across Main Street into the, you know, the people over here, down to the creek.
It's come like halfway up my tire when I was in the street.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, like I said, you have to move
Yeah.
the car.
Plus with this, all the cement in the streets and
Exactly.
everything he'd be putting in, the water just
Yeah.
straight
And
down.
where's that paper?
And,
Did I show you that paper?
Henry's Run has a water retention basin, but that doesn't seem to solve that problem at all. The water still keeps coming down through. So having one here probably have the same result.
Yeah.
Part of me wonders if like like people who aren't as concerned, I don't know if they actually have grasped like what 122 homes on like 20 acres is.
I didn't realize what Henry Run was 24.
It's 12 acres but 24 homes.
Right.
Yeah. So, and like, and that like, I don't know what the ratio of that is, but 122 homes on 24 acres is a lot more.
Yeah.
And it's already like it's not super cramped, but it's cramped up there and it's causing flooding.
It's causing
Well,
problems.
remember, 33 of the properties are 2 apartment buildings, or 3.
Yeah. So
Not that it makes it any better, but
But it-
it's.
Is he planning to make row homes? That'd be the only way I could think of to fit all those in there.
So it's going to be
Yeah, the townhouse
a
is
mix
really
of apartments, townhomes, and single family detached.
yeah, with like
That's
2
the concept.
McMansions in the woods. So he's now going to cut into the woods and cut trees down, which will create even more flooding because the trees absorb water. Like if this was all wooded, we wouldn't get as much flood as we do with it being grassland. But grassland still absorbs so much more than impervious
Yes.
surface does.
Has he already started clearing out land up there at all?
Not that we know. We don't know.
Not that I'm aware of, but I do see stakes in the ground.
Yeah, it's definitely flags and stuff like that.
I could see something orange on top of the hill from here.
Yeah, it's a ribbon around a
Yeah,
stake.
they want.
One of the reasons I moved to this town was because of the character of it. I come from Levittown, where there's a bunch of tract housing, cookie cutters, you know. What is it? Little pink house is ticky tacky, and here you don't have that. You got everything's a little different, and there's a lot of history here, and we like that. But if he builds these homes, it's gonna be tract housing, so they all look the same, and it'll completely change the character of this town.
I made a list of some of the native plants and animals living in and relying on the woods and this hill. For the flora, we have Catherine's moss, turkey tail mushroom, wood ear mushroom, bloodroot, which is considered at risk of extinction by the United Plant Savers, common self-heal, calico aster, cucumber root, which is endangered in Florida and Illinois, sawbriar, Virginia spring beauty, gray birch, Solomon's plume, which is endangered and or protected in Arizona, Kentucky, Tennessee, Maryland, American holly, May apple is at risk of extinction, common blue wood aster is critically imperiled in Kansas and vulnerable in Delaware and Missouri, northern spicebush, oak mazegill, whitewood aster, American jump seed, intermediate wood fern, which is critically imperiled in Missouri, Iowa, and imperiled in South Carolina and Illinois, little nest polypore, fluffy dust lichen, common jewelweed, American pokeweed, Canada goldenrod, white snakeroot, white ash, which is critically endangered in the country, swamp white oak, northern red oak, American beech, and American elm, which is endangered in the country. And then for the animals, there's red fox, white-tailed deer, raccoon, coyote, red-tailed hawk, northern harrier hawk, which is at risk of extinction, bald eagle, great horned owl, eastern bluebird, northern cardinal, northern mockingbird, blue jay, house sparrow, house finch, common yellowthroat, mourning dove, American robin, Carolina wren, red-bellied woodpecker, white-breasted nuthatch, dark-eyed junco, house mice, fowler toad, northern leopard frog, eastern cottontail, eastern gray squirrel, northern flicker, turkey vulture, sharp-shinned hawk, eastern screech owl, northern flying squirrel, and types of rails, bats, herons, and crows.
And this all helps absorb some of the water as well.
Oh yeah. It helps absorb the water, and it gives just like I said, like where the babies are born with all the amphibians and reptiles, and they don't have to worry about predators.
And in his plan, this will all be gone.
This will be here, but something about there may be a stormwater basin like just right there, and it sounded like his engineer at the planning commission meeting was talking about directing all the runoff down here, which that would just pollute it and destroy it. This is the brook that goes all the way up to the property.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's so pretty around here. Like, it's so tranquil and peaceful. And
So as you saw and heard, these people are very adamant about trying to save this hill for multiple reasons. So if you can, please click the link in the description, sign their petition, help them get their signatures, and be on the lookout for the GoFundMe account, which they spoke of that they intend on making very soon. With that, I guess I'm going to say that I'm out of here. I will see you all in the next one. Make sure you stay safe, stay healthy, and take care.